Is this little house your home? Or this one, this bungalow, is it yours? Is that you in the yard? Perhaps you own this place. Or even this one. It could be that you live in one side of this duplex. If this is your home, you certainly have a beautiful view. But under other circumstances, this might be your view. Or even this view of the prison yard. These are your homes, too. These places belong to you. These are your state institutions. At Davenport and Toledo. At Mitchellville and Eldora. At Glenwood, Woodward, Mount Pleasant, Cherokee, Independence, Clarinda, Anamosa, and Rockwell City, Fort Madison, and at Marshalltown. 14 institutions that belong to you. 12,800 people in your care. 12,800. That's about as many people as there are in Oskaloosa, in Poole. About twice as many as there are in Atlantic, Fairfield, Iowa Falls, or Grinnell. And how many does it take to care for these people? How many does it take to care for your children? You and the teacher, the preacher and the policeman, the doctor and the dentist. These 12,800 people need cooks and teachers, doctors and preachers too. And it takes 3,000 of them. Who hires these people? Who pays the bills for this large family? Whose is the stewardship? In whose hands do we place this trust?
The people of Iowa, for many years, you people sitting in your living rooms tonight have delegated to the state government the responsibility of caring for our mentally ill, for our dependent children, and others who are unable to take care of themselves, including children who consistently misbehave, and others who flagrantly violate the laws of the state. The state has long recognized that this is too big a burden for the individual family and for the average charity. So the state provides the service and care for these individuals as provided by law. The 14 institutions of the Board of Control are operated under this board, which consists of 3 members. This is a tremendous undertaking for 3 individuals. It is a full-time position, and they are charged with the responsibility of providing the care and the necessary treatment for this approximate 13,000 patients and wards of the state. In this operation today, we have the advantages of advanced therapy, and it is of necessity important that these board members have a sincere appreciation of the profession. Likewise, they must also have an understanding of human needs and of human beings. They must be good businessmen because this is a large business operation. They must have a good knowledge of institutional care. They must have a good knowledge of farm operations, for instance, and many other activities which are comparable to the activities so important in the everyday conduct of personal affairs as well as these great institutions. In the institutions, they hire personnel to care for the wards of the state and provide the professional skill which is so necessary for their treatment, for their care, and for their improvement. They employ a large group of professional people In the 6 mental institutions under the Board of Control, there are over 30 skilled psychologists. We have over 15 psychiatrists in these 6 institutions. We have a large number of chaplains and ministers. I believe the number exceeds 30. We have dietitians. We have one chief dietitian in charge of all of this work, and dietitians in each of the institutions. We have a psychiatrist in charge of the 6 mental institutions, and in the industries which are in the various institutions, we have a manufacturer in charge. We also have a farm manager, because most of the institutions have farm operations. In fact, the farm operations are major in supplying much of the food for the institution. And in the overall operation of it, we find the necessity for sound business management and an understanding and a sincere desire to help and alleviate the suffering of people. This board is a full-time board. It fell my lot peculiarly shortly after taking the office of governor to name a complete new board of control because of deaths and expirations and resignation of terms. And I have a very sincere appreciation of the fine quality of service which these boards have given, the boards and their staff, in providing better care and improved medical treatment and therapy in these institutions. And in the penal institutions, too, I may say, that they have provided vocational training, which is very important in the rehabilitation of these individuals who are later to go back into society. I am very glad indeed that we are having the advantage of television, the facilities of television station WOI. It will make it possible for the people of this state to go into the institutions and see the kind of care that is given to the patients there and the wards of the state, to go to Toledo and to go over to Davenport to the Annie Wittenmeyer home and see how the children are cared for, to go into our mental institutions and see how the patients are treated there, to go to our screening centers, the inpatient and outpatient clinics where people can go under the present law voluntarily without being committed and receive the benefit of modern treatment and therapy. This will give the people of our state an insight into what is being done in the advanced treatment and care of the patients and wards of the state. This is a great program. I have an enthusiasm about the work of the Board of Control institutions and a sincere appreciation of what it is doing for the wards of the state, the people who are mentally ill, the dependent children, all in improving their lot, restoring them to health, and giving them the finest care possible under present-day circumstances. This work of the state is a great contribution to society, and this series of programs initiated tonight will take you on a tour of these institutions and give you a good knowledge of what the state can do and what the state is doing.
Here are the members of the Board of Control who've been appointed by the Governor of Iowa. Here, too, are the divisional directors who have been selected by the Board. Robert C. Lappin, Chairman. Mrs. Esther Wright, Executive Secretary. Mr. Henry W. Burma, Member of Board. Mr. Robert L. Jones, member of board. Dr. Charles C. Graves, Director of Mental Institutions. Mrs. Elizabeth Palmer, Director of Children's Division. Mr. Lowell W. Schenke, Director of Psychological Services. Mr. Harry L. Shropshire, Purchasing Agent. Miss L. Beata Rieger, Chief Dietitian. Mr. Ernest M. Wright, Farm and Dairy Advisor. Mr. Ralph Arnold, Architect. The board is in session now. What problems concerning our state institutions are they discussing? Let's listen in and find out.
Station WOI-TV and having agreed to give us time for 13 programs, of which this is one of the first. I would therefore like to bring you into a board meeting, such as is held at the State House, State Office Building in Des Moines, and see how we operate as a board. The emphasis of this present board has been to emphasize rehabilitation, and to that end they have adopted the policy of doors to institutions and hospitals must swing both ways. The patient and the inmate must be taken in, but the door must swing outward also so that the patient and the inmate may be turned out. To that end, and with that in mind, thought in mind, we have one of the fine staff of experts, consultants, from whom you will hear. But I'd like to call on Mr. Burma, one of the other members of the board, to have him tell you a little more about our work. Mr. Burma.
I have taken note of the commitment trends to our institution. The increase in commitment to most of our institutions has been gradual, except to the boys' training school at Eldora and the girls' training school at Mitchellville. The increase there has been pronounced. This may indicate that juvenile delinquency and neglect is increasing, or more young persons with delinquent tendencies are committed to us. This presents a genuine challenge for us. We must provide more and better facilities for vocational rehabilitation, along with an expanded program of guidance and counseling. The services that we try to render in these institutions and that we should is the best that we know how to offer.
Mr. Jones, as the third member of the board, what would you like to add to what has been said?
Mr. Lapham, I would like to expand a little on what Mr. Burma has said. The subject you have chosen is a very important one for the reason that all of our institutions are involved. Our mental institutes, our feeble-minded schools and hospitals, our children's homes, and our penal institutions. They are all involved. We have about 13,000 unfortunate persons in our institutions hoping for rehabilitation. And we, as the Board of Control, and our staff of consultants, are constantly striving to solve this problem. Now, Mr. Lapham, we have our consultants here tonight. I think it would be most interesting to have their thinking on this problem.
Sir, I think it's both timely and well, and I'd like to hear first from Dr. Charles C. Graves, Director of our Mental Institute. Tell us something about our program.
Mr. Lapham, as we all know, at the present time, we have some 6,000 patients in our 4 mental health institutes. We have some 3,000 mental defectives in our 2 training schools. We have some 450 epileptics under our care, and we also are concerned with the criminal insane, which number in the neighborhood of 100. It is our responsibility to see that these patients receive the very best care that we are able to give with our present facilities. To do this, we are going to have to give very careful attention to our budget. As you know, within the next month or two, the time will arrive for us to consider our budget. And so therefore, in order to see that these people get adequate care, we have got to pay very much attention to them.
Well, Mrs. Palmer, as Director of the Children's Division, you ought to be able to add something to our extensive program. I'm sure you can.
Mr. Ladd, we have 540 children in our two children's institutions, the Iowa Annie Wittenmeyer Home in Davenport and the State Juvenile Home at Toledo. These children, their ages ranging from infancy to 21 years of age. These are the only two institutions in the state providing facilities for long-time care and study of the young dependent child. And because of this, it is necessary for us to have a program we can survey and study the individual needs of the child within the institution. This program must include consideration for the child, their mental, social, physical, and educational needs. We have over 300 children placed in foster homes in the state under the supervision of our field workers.
That's rather interesting. And now Mr. Shank is Director of Psychological Services. What work are the psychologists doing in that field?
Well, Mr. Lappin, perhaps I can briefly explain the part that the psychologist plays in the diagnostic, treatment, and rehabilitative work with the children and adults who come to our institution. Whenever a child or adult comes to one of our institutions, it is necessary to find out as much as possible about that person in order that we may know what type of individual we have. We need to know something about his general intelligence, his interests, and aptitude. We also need to know something about his attitude, his feelings and emotions, and how he may be expected to react to certain emotions and feelings. Now, the psychologist, by means of various tests and psychological techniques, is able to tell which of these tests to use.
Well, that's fine. Mr. Shropshire's purchasing agent, can you shed some light on this matter for us?
Mr. Lappin, the purchasing department provides for the physical rehabilitation of the institution. We feel that we contribute largely to this program through the appropriate buying, efficient buying of good food, clothing, and medical supplies so essential to the welfare and comfort of our people. We purchase a total of $4 million worth of supplies each year on competitive bids from manufacturers, distributors, and jobbers at lowest wholesale prices.
The feeding of this sort of family is interesting. Miss Rieger, Chief Dietitian, will you tell us what your work is?
Mr. Lappin, I'm sure that you and the rest of the members of the board will agree with me that a very important phase of rehabilitation is providing an adequate diet. My aim is to provide an adequate diet, well-balanced, and prepared under sanitary conditions. At present, we are serving over 44,000 meals per day at an average cost of 30 cents. It is only possible to do this by very close cooperation between the dietitians, the purchasing agents, and the farm department. By purchasing at low cost, we are able to provide this type of diet.
Mr. Wright, the governor told us of the extensive farm and dairy program. You as advisor might elaborate on that.
Mr. Lappin, rehabilitation and farming certainly go hand in hand. The state operates around 12,000 acres of farmland, enough around 1,000 cows, raise 8,000 pigs, have around 1,000 acres in gardens, 2,000 acres of corn, and so on. The net operating income on this land last year amounted to approximately $440,000 from a cash standpoint. However, the most valuable thing, I think, from farmland has always been the people. To learn to work on a farm is an advantage to anyone. And that has been one purpose in our institution, to teach the children not only to work, but to enjoy their work. And I think that is a challenge to any and all.
Mr. Arnold, as architect, you're in charge of the physical plant. May you tell us a little more about that?
Mr. Lappin, you stressed the rehabilitation idea strongly. And I would call attention to the fact that the physical plant of the institutions under the Board of Control would conservatively be valued at $100 million. Now that means rehabilitation problems in that field as well as in the matter of patients and inmates. The capital improvement program is well underway. We have had fairly good appropriations for this purpose, and we hope that with our friendly relationship that is now existing, that this can be continued.
All good organizations must have someone who sees that the things are carried out, but we're fortunate in having a very pleasant young lady, Mrs. Wright, who's our executive secretary, that sees that the job is done. Mrs. Wright, what is you add to this now?
Well, thank you, Mr. Lapham, for your kind words. I see you're going to let me have the last word tonight, which is very fortunate because I don't always get to have it. I'm sure the board is interested in the comments made by our consultants tonight, and I'm sure that the general public will also be interested in hearing what they have to say. Therefore, as usual, I've jotted down a few notes, which I think we should discuss at a meeting later on. They have explained their work and in their particular departments and what they are doing, and I think they have made the report good to us. With the population trend, as pointed out by Mr. Burma, and the rehabilitation programs, which we have underway and which they have pointed out, I think that they are all doing a good job. I am keeping these notes, and I suggest that they be brought up in a meeting later on.
This viewing public gives you some idea of the operation of the Board of Control in a very condensed form. And now you will probably hear further from the other folks in the program.
You've just looked at the men behind the scenes in our care for dependent children, behind the scenes in our care for those who are mentally ill, for those who are mentally deficient, for those who have broken society's laws. You have seen the governor, the Board of Control, the directors. This is just the beginning of a long story. And when a television studio brings you the rest of the story about the men, women, and children in our care, there are many other people behind the scenes, television people. The coordinator of the efforts of all the television workers is the producer. His is a job of trust, too, a responsibility to bring you the truth. Ray Stewart, producer on the staff of WOI-TV, has taken this responsibility for In Our Care.
You know, they really spread these institutions out all over the state. So it has taken a lot of time and a lot of travel and a lot of effort to coordinate all of this work and bring you these films, which we hope to bring you about these institutions. I don't know what a person says who has been working on a program for 12 weeks or so, what a person says to help you to feel how he feels, and I'm speaking of myself. Since about February 15th, since my first arrival in Ames, I have been working on this series as the producer. I have gone to all 14 of these institutions. I have visited, I made inspection trips to see what was going on. And then I have gone back with movie cameras, and as we have gone out, Mrs. Allen with me at some times, and Mrs. Fern Bonamy has been going with me at other times. We have been greeted with open arms. The superintendents of these institutions have told us and told me, here is our institution. We open the doors to you. You show the people outside how the people on the inside live. Beyond that, I can only tell you that I have grown extremely fond of some of the people that I have met in these institutions. At first, some of it was distracting because I'll tell you frankly, this was all new to me. But after a time and spending 2 or 3 days in an institution with the people, seeing how they live, talking with the superintendent, whenever possible, talking with the patients, the inmates, and the children themselves, I felt that I came to know them and to appreciate their problems. Now, I don't mean to present myself as a one-day expert on these things because I'm not. I have only been to the place and observed what has gone on. And I have tried to gather around me a lot of people who are experts. And I've tried to use them as advisors to help me and Mrs. Allen and the other people involved in the script writing and the production to get information to you which is accurate. But beyond that, we have arranged to bring people into these studios here tonight. We'll have film which will show you what the institutions look like, but we will also bring talent into the studio. This talent will be music, quartets, and so forth. I hope that you will be with me next week and all the weeks that follow. I'll be right here waiting out.
During the weeks which follow, the television cameras of WOI-TV will take you into these mental hospitals. We will take you past the main doors, down these regular corridors, and beyond. Doors will be unlocked, that you may see into these and other wards to know how mental patients live and are cared for. We will take you on a personal tour behind these massive gates. Let you look behind these barred windows to see how prison inmates live. We will follow these children through their daily routines to show you how they live and how they are cared for and how they get along. In Our Care is produced by Ray Stewart in the studios of WOI-TV in Ames. Lamar Smith directed. The script was by Hazel Allen, with production research by Fern Bonham. The technical director was Charles Hawley. Your narrator has been Bob Chase.